So this bulky monolith behind me is the subject of this video, and if you don't know what it is, don't worry, we're going to talk about it, but I'll give you a hint. It made this. And if you want to know why I'm so excited about a new shop tool, then stick around. Hey, it's Steve and welcome to my shop. Now, if you have a workshop of your own or a maker business, you're going to want to keep adding tools because you're going to want to make additional things, and that's why I want to talk about this big box behind me. This is the UltraPrint 12K. It's a huge, fast 3D resin printer, and it came at the perfect time for me, which is why I'm so excited, because I've been working on a project for a while and I've been hitting some walls, and this printer helped me solve the issue, and I'll show you that project a little later in the video. But right now, what I want to do is show you all of the features that this printer has and show you what it can do. But we'll first start with a flyover. So I'll do a little more detailed flyover than usual, but we'll start with the back. There's a power connector and a switch, obviously. There's a temperature control at the back, which controls the internal temperature of the printer. And over on the other side, there's a hose, which you can stick directly into your resin bottle so you don't have to pour. On the right-hand side, there's a USB port for your drive and a Wi-Fi antenna. And moving around to the front, you're met with a nice color display, touch sensitive, and it controls pretty much every function of the printer as far as setup and control. Inside the printer, we have a build plate where your prints go. It locks in place with that big nut on top, and it goes back exactly the same place every time. Big vat for resin and that 12K display underneath. Overall, very simple, very clean design. Now, a couple features you won't find on any other printer. This printer has a built-in pump, so you can flip down that little nozzle and you can use it to fill the resin vat from a bottle, or you can push the blue button to empty the resin back into the bottle. It also has a curing station built in, so you can drop in this UV light, and on top of that, the vat, you can put this turntable. And the beauty is you don't have to empty the vat, so you can just plop this on and then cure and then print the next unit. And all you have to do is drop your piece on there after you clean it up, turn on the UV light, close the lid, and it'll cure. My printer also came with 3 big bottles of high precision resin. It works really well, and I'll show you in the results. There's also some basic tools, a couple of spatulas for pulling things off the build plate, some cutters for cutting supports when you're done, some filters for restoring resin back into the bottle, and a pack of gloves. Now, in addition, you're probably also going to want to pick up a silicone rubber funnel and a pack of gloves, and I'll put links in the description below for those. So before we move on to some output, I wanted to quickly look at some of the specs. You can see the build plate size here. It's roughly a 10-inch diagonal, fairly big. UltraPrint also has a 16-inch build plate on an 8K printer as well, so if you need something really big, you can look at that one. The resolution here, that's the 12K resolution on the display. Build speed, really quick, 200 millimeters an hour. That's 200 millimeters in height as it builds up. Connectivity, of course, USB and Wi-Fi. USB is done with a USB memory stick, but you can also use Wi-Fi to transfer files directly to the printer. Software, Cheeto Box is the one that I use. There's also a Lychee Slicer, which I haven't looked at, but I may actually have a quick look. And the last thing you can see, it's a fairly big, bulky unit. It weighs 15 kilograms, so it is pretty hefty. It's going to take up a space on your workbench. So I got all the routine stuff out of the way so we can actually do something useful with this printer. So I'll fill the reservoir with some resin, and I'll select just an example off of the USB stick, one that they provided. There's a few here, but I'll pick the Notre Dame Cathedral, the one in Paris that burned a few years ago. And when I select it, it shows me a picture of what it's going to print, and if I'm happy with that, I press the play button. Then it does just a routine system check to make sure everything's ready to go, and I can push the start button, and you'll see the build plate drop down into the vat and printing starts. It's about as drama-free as you can get, and I just love the simplicity here. I won't show you every layer printing here because it took about an hour and 15 minutes to print that, which is, believe it or not, really quick. But I'll show you it coming out of the vat here with the last step, and it's a cathedral upside down, and we'll clean it up and I'll show you what it looks like. Now, before I jump to the results, you might notice that I didn't use the pump to fill the reservoir, and that's simply because it's faster to do it manually. Where I see this pump is more when you're in the middle of a big job and you want to fill while you're still printing. And I did do that. I'll show you here. It works really well, actually. It's a little slow to pump, but you probably don't want high flow anyway when you're refilling the reservoir. With all the printing done, we can take a look at the results, and you can see the basilica here turned out just fantastic. To give you an idea of some of the scale, this little ornament on top of the steeple is about 1.5 millimeters, and these uprights in the bottom window are about 0.5 millimeter wide. So really, really good detail. I also printed this other example they had, this head for some reason. I don't know who it is, but it turned out really well as well. So models like that, the church and the head that I did there, they're the kind of models that resin printers typically get used for, and that's because accuracy there doesn't really matter that much. And my old Anycubic printer, which granted is about 5 years old, it could vary on any given dimension by as much as 0.5 millimeter or more, so it really wasn't good for anything precise. So I wanted to try this with the UltraPrint 12K just to see how much better it was. Now I mentioned that I have another side project going, and it's this. This is an RC 2014 retro computer. It's an old Z80 style computer, and when you get a kit like this, it comes with a backplane and a bunch of boards, and you put them all together. And it doesn't come with a case, it doesn't come with anything. Now, I wanted mine to look a little bit different. I wanted it to be that old retro style computer, the old IMSA 8080 style computer where you had all the lights and all the buttons. And I created something on my own. And that project looks like this. Now the actual project isn't important here. What's important is the buttons. I use these little micro switches. They're about 50 cents a piece, but they don't have caps and you can't put caps on them. And I wanted that retro style that I showed you in the IMSA 8080. So I designed my own. Now I won't go through the design because it's not really part of this video, but I will show you how I set up Chidu box for the UltraPrint 12K and printed, I don't know, 48 of these buttons. And I'll show you how they fit together and how concise that measurement is. And now I want to show you how I actually made that. So I have Chidu box up and running here and ready to go. Now if I look at the settings, UltraPrint was good enough to provide 2 profiles. The first one is what I arbitrarily called detail, and that's 0.05 millimeter layer height, so it's really high detail. And the second one I called fast, which is 0.1 millimeter layer heights. And you can see it's already preset all of this stuff, which is wonderful because there's a lot of settings that you can configure here if you look at the print settings, and it just sets them the right way for you, which is good. Now I'm ready to go. So the first thing I want to do is drop my button that I want to print on here. And you can see it popped in. Now it's the wrong orientation, so I'm going to rotate it. Now I can actually do a rotation like this and kind of get my best guess, or I can go over here and just type 90 degrees, which is what I want. Now I also want to put some supports on this thing because I don't want it printed flat on the workspace, and I'll just say put some platform supports in, and you can see if I look underneath, you can see it actually put a bunch of small supports in here. And that's really all I want to do. So when I print this, after I'm printing it, I just break off the supports and the print looks pristine. Now I don't just want one of these, I want as many as I can put on this workspace. So what I'm going to do is I'll select this one from here and I'll go up to the copy, which is this one, and I'll just hit copy a bunch of times. And then I'll do an auto layout of everything. And I'll say line up along the x-axis. Actually, no, I'm going to say line up along the center. And I want to put a little space between these. So I'll say put 3 millimeters between them. And we'll do that. So it put a bunch of them on. I can obviously put a bunch more on. I'll fill this up as much as I possibly can, of course, because the beauty of resin printing is it doesn't take any longer to print 10 than it does to print 1. So I need 32 of them in total and maybe a couple of spares in case I break something putting one on. And let's see how this looks. Oops. So we'll auto lay that out again. And I still have room for about 3 more, so I'll add 3 more to this. And I'll center them again, and there we go. So that's, what do we have, 6 by 7, 8, that's a pile. So that's more than enough. And all I need to do now is say slice this, and it's using that 0.1 millimeter profile that I had selected there. And I can do two things. I can send it to the printer over Wi-Fi, or I can just save it to a file and move it over on a USB stick. I'm going to choose this one. It's fairly electrically noisy in my workshop, so Wi-Fi doesn't work all that well, so I don't want to trust it. So I'm just going to save this, and I'll store it somewhere, and with that I'm ready to go. I'll stick it on the USB and I'll start the print. I won't bother showing you another print job. Suffice it to say I printed them, and now I've got 48 little buttons. I've split them roughly in two because I want to paint half of them blue and half of them red. Now, not really part of the project, but I wanted to show you those micro switches. I printed this little stick that the switch mounts into, and you can see it's got these little tabs on the bottom, and those line up with the holes on the side of the button, and now I can just snap them in there and it works fantastic. So button problem solved, and the UltraPrint 12K made this an easy job. It really is precise, which is so important on a lot of projects I do. Now, just before I summarize here, I'll tell you that my UltraPrint 12K is a pre-release unit, so there are still changes being made. And while I was recording this video, the company reached out to me and said, hey, we've got two things that are changing. The first one is they're replacing the black turntable with a transparent one, and they've put UV light underneath. And that's a really nice touch, because when I was trying to cure my 48 switches, I had to keep rotating them because no light on the bottom. The second thing they've changed is they've replaced the power switch on the back for the UV light with a door switch, and that just makes things a whole lot safer. So two very good changes, and it's nice to know that the company is still evolving this product to make it safer and more useful. So that's the UltraPrint 12K. It's a really nice printer if you're in the market for a resin printer. Now, I would say if you're a maker and you have a maker business, you're probably not going to build projects from scratch with this as the sole offering. But if you need to make special additions to existing projects, like I did with my retro computer and its buttons, it's perfect for that kind of thing, where you can just whip something up really quickly and you get something that's real high resolution, product grade, it's accurately sized. So keep all that in mind. Now, this printer isn't shipping yet as I'm doing the recording. It should be available by the time you see this video, so I'll put all the information down in the description below. And if there's an affiliate link and you're interested in helping the channel when you pick one of these up, please use that link. I'll also put a video up above here if you want to go watch something else that's on the channel. And with that, we'll wind down. So get out there, make your world, and I'll see you next time.